Bon dia, Vacorja. Hello, everyone. Eimear Burke here, and welcome to another Fireside Chat. And this is Fireside Chat 148, where I'm in conversation with a member of the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. And as is customary, I will start with a prayer for peace. Gomara Shiacon ar fud na crinne. Gomara Shiacon in our jaili agus in our jirha. Gonairi lin lenakrid garmaka. Gamwich buikas jiv je chuvdaga, spirit chuvdaga. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb. That our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So let me see where people are from. Hi, Ferdy, it's sunny South London. It's sunny now. It was dull today in Kilkenny. Ballina, Killaloo, Ardnamurchan, lovely. Crouch End, again, London, sunny again, London. That's very nice. Belgium, Canada. So it's just wonderful to see you all. Jersey, LA, Ulster, brilliant. Connecticut. Anyway, wonderful to see you all. Brighton. So this evening we're going to Madrid. So we're going to sunny southeast. I don't know what it's like today, but my guest this evening, who's in County Wexford, Anita Carroll. Anita, you're so welcome.
Cheergwit, Eimear.
Yes, anyway. So you're not quite, no, you're in Wexford. You're close to Carlow, though. You're in...
Yeah, very, very close to it. I'm in a place called Knocknalower, which is in Bunclody, County Wexford. So it's about 500 yards. As I look out, I'm looking at the Wicklow Mountains here, right across. The panoramic view is beautiful. And like that, then Askamore would be on the other side of me. So I'm in a lovely part of the country, up the mountain, in the midst of agricultural land, full of trees and animals. So beautiful place.
Lovely. Do you know the meanings of those place names?
Knocknalower. No, at one stage we thought it was a hill of books.
Oh, Knocknalower. Okay, well, Knock would be a hill. And then Aska?
Askamore, which is just literally, not even 5 minutes from me. Yeah, Askamore.
Oh, brilliant, wonderful. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit about me.
Because you are, I was going to say you're a dub, you're not, because, oops, you sound like one to me. But you're Bray County, North County Wicklow, South County Dublin, whatever.
Yes, Little Bray. I'm actually originally, I was born and reared in Bray. And I lived in Little Bray, which is down beside the Dargle. So I suppose Bray would be, right beside the Dargle River. So we would have spent our childhood, our summers, our weekends, days we weren't in school, in the river. And I mean in the river. So, we were water babies. But, so I grew up in Bray. I am one of 4 children. I'm a twin. I have a twin sister. Not like me at all. Not a bit like me. So we were very lucky, I suppose, because my mom, we had an older brother and sister. My brother was nearly 17 and my sister 15 when we were born. So my poor mother at 43 fell pregnant on twins, 2 little maggots. But yeah, so we had a good childhood, Eimear. We were, I suppose, nearly two sets of parents. So yeah, I would have yeah, I enjoyed the river and the sea and outdoors all the time. I was one of those kids that was always stuck up a tree or stuck somewhere. But yeah, so it's a long time since I've been a child now. So I suppose my background is in youth and community work. So for over 30 years, that's what I have worked at. Yeah, I have initially started, it would have been youth work, working with young people, very much hands-on. In youth clubs, I would have also facilitated life skills groups for young women. So that would have been, yeah, it was really, really good. And funny enough, some of those young girls I would still be in touch with, like nearly 28 years, 29 years ago. Some of them went on to become youth workers and community workers. So yeah, so I took that as a really, really good sign. And when I was thinking about coming on, I was thinking, oh my God, like one of the activities we had was a pet club. We had a little, on Saturdays, we had the nature club. So I used to bring the kids out. Yeah. And when I think of it, like, my God, you wouldn't do it now because child protection and I suppose all of the guidelines are very, very different now. But we had the freedom to go up the fields and lifting logs and searching for all sorts of creatures and, really, really good. But I suppose the whole aim of it was to I suppose teach kids a little bit more about the environment that we're in, all of that. So I had a love of that, but it was always great fun. And there were a couple of I was thinking about one young fella today, and he was always getting into trouble until I made him the guy who carried the first aid kit and the plasters, and his whole life changed. Oh, he was absolutely very important. But yeah, so we would have spent a lot of time. I would have got people in, we'd say, from the local pigeon club to talk to them about how to look after pigeons and greyhounds and stuff. So these kids would have been all under 12.
Was this in Bray? Was this in Bray?
Yeah, Little Bray. Yeah. So, I mean, it was great. I have to say, I realized this is where I fit. This is what I really want to do. I felt I was good at it. I had great enjoyment working with the young people. But then as things, I suppose, as you progress in it, you realize that you can also make much more of a difference, I suppose, in the community sector when you're involved in policy development and stuff. So that would have been something. The boring part, I was never boring, I suppose. But yeah, so I would have moved on, and I would have, say 30 years ago, I would have had applied for a job and got the post in Ballywaltrim, which would be in another part of Bray. And it was to manage a community development project. So I spent 18 years working with them in the community. I had an amazing time. I suppose I was working with families that were struggling a little. They were in difficulty. Children, will say, who were early school leavers. There were addiction issues. So all the kind of social issues. But albeit I always felt people were doing the best they could. I got on great in the community, and I suppose I earned the respect because I was very much hands-on and on the ground with them. I mean, when I went into it, it was a kind of fairly small project, and working from a community development perspective, you're working alongside people. You're supporting them to identify what the issues are, what the problems are, and for them to come up with their own solutions. And in that way, they own the issues and they're more likely to buy into it. It might be a little bit slower. It's not prescriptive. It's very much in a supportive way. So, yeah, although at times it was difficult, I had some very great experiences, very funny experiences. There were days when you think, did that actually happen today? Yeah. Can
you give us an example?
Well, working, for instance, we had a homework club. Oh, this one I love. You love this one, Eimear, a bit like the night court. So we established an afternoon homework club because we felt that some of the parents, they'd identified it themselves, saying they struggled with homework, the maths was poor, they couldn't do their Irish, neither could I. But anyway, so we established a little homework club, and we had kids that would come wanting to go to the homework club, but the only rule was you had to be in school. So they would arrive like they were 3, 4, and I'd have to say, wait, you're going to have to come back next year when you start school. So one of the things we did was I got funding out of the VC, and I bought a karaoke machine. And one of the youth workers, Liam, said to me, "Oh, lads, how are you going to explain this one?" I said, "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it." So what we did was we set up the karaoke machine, and we had Friday afternoon karaoke, but the kids were reading the words from the screen. So I'd say it was brilliant. It was really, really funny. But when we had a visit from the VC, and Liam says, "You're in trouble now." "Not a bit," I said. So in comes the guy, Kevin Lewis from VC. You spent a lot of money on equipment and stuff, and you bought a karaoke. And I said, "Yeah." "And how is that relevant to homework?" And I said, "It's a literacy tool." I said, "Sure, it's teaching them to read." I said, "And it's giving them confidence and absolute." And I mean, it just, so we did giggle over it. We had a great laugh over it. But a couple of weeks after that, we decided every Friday, well, it was the youth workers. I was supposed to be upstairs managing the project, but I found it very hard to stay away from the young people and the kids. So they used to have me come down on a Friday and judge the talent contest. So this Friday, the talent contest was, you're going to hop up here on stage and you're going to sing a lullaby. So this was great. And, we had these, we'll say, all under 8. One little girl got up anyway. We're all singing. A few of them had got up, and then this little girl got up, and up she struts up onto the table, and she starts to rock it out and singing Blue Suede Shoes. And we were looking, going, "Blue Suede Shoes, okay."
That's exactly it, yeah.
She's obviously an Elvis fan.
Yes.
To which, after she'd finished, and I said, "That's an unusual lullaby." I said, "Your little bedtime lullaby." "Yes," she says, "my daddy, when he comes in from the pub, he comes up and he sings when he's drunk and in the horse." And all we could do was scream with the laughing, because we were saying out of the mouth of babes. So we then had to bring in a rule, Eimear, that you weren't to talk about your business in the centre, because we didn't want people coming in and giving out. But the kids were amazing kids, absolutely amazing. And even the adults at times, we had a bunch of older women, we'll say, that were taking on a caring role in that, for a variety of reasons, mainly drugs. They were kind of parenting their grandchildren, and some of these were hard tickets. And our funding was being cut, and Eamon O'Queeve was the minister.
Oh.
So I riled them all up and said, "I've Eamon O'Queeve coming out next Thursday night. I need you over here, because if he pulls the funding, you're back to doing the homework yourself." And out he came, and sitting, lorrying the biscuits, as one of the women said. Look at him lorrying into the biscuits and the tea. Gave us this whole spiel about, in the Gaeltacht and boats and what have you. And the women were all sitting there listening to him. And every now and again, I try and bring him back to the fact that we needed this funding. And, and again, typical politician, was bringing us back up the garden path. And one of the women turned and said, "Holy Jesus, that lad would talk a glass eye to sleep." And the whole place, it was brilliant. Yeah, and you're kind of going, you could see him looking. So, they were days in the place where you actually said, "Oh my God, that was amazing." There were some others I won't mention. But
well, of course.
One of the girls actually always says to me, "You should write a book." I said, "No one would believe it. They just wouldn't believe some of the stuff." But I actually had a really close connection with that community, and I'm very proud when I walked away after 18 years. We had moved to Wexford, and I was getting to the stage where I was saying, "God, I'm tired working these nights and tired doing so much." And at that stage, we had gone from, over in 18 years, I had set up the whole youth project, and I had got it resourced because money was there for the taking. So we had a youth section in it, which covered a creche, a homework club, and then the youth project and summer projects. We had a women's issue section, which dealt a lot with domestic violence, and that was a particular area I ended up doing a lot of training in to be able to support the families. And then we had a community education program. So there was a lot of services that were developed over the period of years. And I suppose the other part was I was very good at getting people to go and do training, because my thing was, I'm not going to always be here. Somebody else needs to be able to come in true community development fashion and sustain it and keep it going. So I suppose this is why I would say, a lot of the kids I worked with, the younger people, I think 3 of them are actually practicing youth workers at the minute. Some of them went on then, some of the others went on to do addiction studies, and again, working within their community in the drugs field. So I had no qualms about saying, I'm out of here. And at that stage, the Gorey area had been allocated funding to establish a family resource centre. So I applied for the job and got the job to go down there, which would have been 20 minutes from home instead of an hour and a half of a drive up every morning. And so it made such a difference to my quality of life. And my job then was to work with a local management committee and set up a family resource centre. So it's open. And actually tonight they were having the official open of their new building. I'm very proud of the work that I did down there as well. Made great friends in Gorey, had a great time because I got to do it from scratch. So all the policy stuff, all the procedural stuff, as well as the fun stuff. But interesting enough, one of the things that was very, very obvious in Gorey, working with people and listening to people, was mental health issues were a big, big thing. People were experiencing isolation. A lot of people had moved from Dublin down to Gorey. They fell in love with the seaside area, the whole holiday buzz, and thought, I'm going to go and live down there, and sold up their houses during the boom and moved to Gorey. And then, a year, 2 years later, marriages broke up, or people died, and people were left experiencing dreadful isolation, not connected to their communities. So I was able to establish an affordable counselling service using volunteer therapists, people that were registered qualified therapists. Volunteers will say 5 hours a week for me. And we ended up, I think we'd 8 at one stage, in the centre. Some of them stayed on. Some of them, one of them is actually still there. So it's 14 years later, and she's a psychotherapist, Caroline, and she's still there. And I suppose, that was one of the things. The hard part was getting people to volunteer to do that. But the other part was to get people to attend the counselling, because there was a whole stigma attached to it. Yeah. But we worked it, we got it through, and it's an excellent service now. Again, set up in a way that, I was able to retire and let them off with themselves. I stayed out of the place for a full year after setting it up. But similar services like that, women's groups, men's group. I actually set up a gardening group for the men and got a polytunnel and had the polytunnel in the back and had them grow and stuff, because they were happiest when they were in the muck and happiest when they were talking. So, and I loved it. I loved going out to them, and, the row would start over whose turn it was to get what crops had been grown. So, but it was a lovely atmosphere. And one of the things people always complimented all the staff, it was a great team effort, was how welcoming the place was, how respectful people were. And I think, I only talked to the new manager. We were talking about it today, and I said, always remember, you're not here to prescribe. Here's me telling her, but I said, you got to remember, at the end of the day, if you're not being respectful to people, they're not going to come in. They're just not going to come in. Your doors will be open and no one will come in.
Absolutely. I'm just going to, I'll read some comments about you. She sounds like a force of nature. I feel she's one walking, talking hug. I'm in awe of you, Anita. What amazing energy Anita has. Wait a second now. She has such a warm, huggable, nurturing vibe, and you speak with such love. And that's the thing, you see, it always comes from the top. And obviously, unlike Margaret Thatcher, it didn't trickle down, it flowed down.
Absolutely.
And, when you go into any organization, and how you're received at reception is a good indication. It's a good barometer, but pulse of the tenor of the organization. And it's just so lovely to be able to leave a legacy like you have. That you have so many things in place. Well done. I'm in awe of you. That is just
and I loved it, Eimear. Absolutely thrived in an environment where I was working with people and worked as an advocate in the courts. I did a lot of work in the courts with women. And I will share a very funny story. At one stage, I developed vertigo, stress. They reckon had set it off. I was running around like a lunatic. And I got up one morning Went to go to the bathroom and I woke up on the floor. And I had hit the door frame right smack bang across. And Kerry, that was here earlier, she had heard the bang and came running in and got me up off the floor. And I was like, oh my God, my teeth broken and my face. Obviously, you know, you're thinking, and she's like, no, you're okay. But she said she knew it, that's it. So I'm going to go get Mick. So Mick, being Mick, walks in and said, oh, I'll explain. Okay, so Mick was my husband. I will tell you that story in a minute. But Mick, being Mick, walked in, looked at me and said, oh, holy Jesus, I think your nose is broken. I'm like, oh my God. I hadn't broken it, but I did end up with 2 black eyes about 2 weeks before Christmas. I went to the court. Oh, it was horrendous looking at it. Now, we thought it was funny because I thought, you know, well, I thought it was funny because everyone was looking at me. We were trying to hide it. But I went to the court with 2 women to support them to get court orders. And at one stage, one of the solicitors walked over and proceeded to talk to me about the court order because he could actually obviously see the 2 black eyes. And I remember when I told Mick after, Mick was horrified because Mick was a guard. And he was like, oh my God, yeah. So he wouldn't come out with me while I had the 2 black eyes. But yeah, I mean, that was
the thing is, nobody will believe you. You said, no, I walked into a door.
I hit the door. Yeah.
We've heard that one before.
It was hilarious. But, and I suppose, yeah, I mean, one of the other things about working where I did, I actually met Mick. Okay. So I was married years ago and my kids, and then just over 20 years ago, I met Mick through the work that I was doing. Yeah. Mick was a guard in Bray and was a court presenter. So I used to go to the court. I'd be going to get orders for the women and I would try and talk any of them into doing whatever I needed to do for those women. I didn't care what it was. Yeah. And that was how I met Mick. Very quiet, shy man, very meticulous about his administration. And God help him, I absolutely fell head over heels and thought I'm having him, definitely. So... But we ended up absolutely, and I suppose we were together for about 3 years before people knew, because it wouldn't have been a good fit, a community worker that was fighting with the guards and the superintendent, looking for improved police and more respect for the women, all of that, and Mick working in the superintendent's office. Now, we did laugh at it later, because he said he always knew when I was at a meeting and had given the superintendent a hard time because he'd come back and he'd be banging the desk and banging the doors and giving out about me. So, but yeah, so through my work, not only did I make some really good friends, that I also felt that, I had done a lot. I mean, I know I had kind of touched on it and saying to you at one stage, I was involved in a Cooperation North program. And that was a program back in the late 80s, early 90s, late 80s, I think. And it was where there was funding available for women's groups in the south to work with the women's groups up the north to look at commonality. What have we got in common? How can we be part of bringing peace to Ireland? How can we be part of understanding cultures? And I had an amazing time working with those organisations for about 3 years. Derry, Oma and places, and going up in the midst of the helicopters going around and your bags being searched into it. And it was like, oh my God, how much we took for granted in the south of Ireland. And you know, again, very involved in the political aspect of that work, because I also realised very, very quickly that in order to get resources and in order to make a difference, you had to be involved at that policy level to change things. And that took time as well. So I got to meet some really, really good people. I know I made a difference, and that's what's important to me. But as I said, I walked away from Bray with Mick, and we moved to Wexford. But what we did was, because I had the 3 kids, Mick had been previously married as well. And I was like, I'm not moving in. My responsibility is to educate my kids. We bought a house beside each other. We bought 2 houses right beside each other. So we had the best life for 14 years. Where, Mick had his house and I had mine, and I went off to work and we come home and we had meals together and we went off on holidays we had a fantastic life. We got on really, really well. I was happy, and I know Mick was as well. And I used to tell him that every day. You are happy, aren't you, love? But because he was so quiet. But yeah, we had a great life. He had a fantastic relationship with my children. They absolutely loved him to bits. And he was, Mick would come out with stuff that particularly Emma, my eldest daughter, would say, Mick, that was totally inappropriate. She would say, totally inappropriate. So they bought him these T-shirts. And the rule over dinner was, if he was wearing one of his T-shirts, he could say some of the things he needed to say. But it was fun, Eimear. We had a great life together. And then what we did the year Kerry was graduating from college in Waterford, Mick said to me on the way home, so are we putting the pugs through college or are we getting married? And I said, sure, we may as well get married. And what we did was we planned the wedding for the following August, and Mick would have turned 60. And I said, I'm not marrying an old man, so I'll marry you. So got married the day before his 60th birthday. We told nobody. And we organised a 60th birthday party and invited all our friends and family and Marky. Mick spent weeks, months actually, going backwards and forwards in the camper van to France getting booze. So there was plenty of, yeah. And at that celebration of his 60th birthday, Mick announced my wife and I, and absolute flabbergasted. So we had great.
There were tears. I bet you there were tears.
There was. I mean, there was. We still have. You can hear a little video of my son going, "What did he say?" They go, "What? And it's brilliant to hear. But they loved him. But sadly, I suppose, Mick loved dogs and he loved gardening. So that's something I had in common. We both loved pottering around the garden, digging holes. We both loved animals. And Mick was a devil for bringing home dogs from the station that had no homes and no mammies. And he'd say, no, don't start giving out to me. But, oh, Jesus, no, Mick, please. I once said, do you think we'd 11 dogs?
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah. And Mick would have let them away with murder. I suppose the youth worker in me treated the dogs like young kids, boundaries. They had to know who was boss, and
Well, but Sean McCann says, I get the sense that Anita could successfully herd cats. So you can see how it would have been stocked on those dogs.
Absolutely, Eimear. I mean, but what? 6 weeks ago, my son Clay and his wife Jen went on holidays. They have horses, donkeys, and dogs. And I took his 2 dogs along with my 6, and Kerry has 3. And I had 11 dogs here for a week looking after them. And it was like I only had 2 because they just know how to behave. They're, but like that, yeah, I love them. I'm very well known in the vets because I'm always in or out with 1 or 2 of them. But I used to say to Mick, please, he'd say, I have a present for you. And I'd say, please don't let it be something I have to feed and bring to the vet, because it was always, and I will tell you a really funny story about him, because some of the Christmas presents I got, Eimear, were just unbelievable. I got a nut this year, Christmas. I got this wooden nut, and I thought there has to be a little.
This past Christmas.
This would have been, now Mick has passed away since, but it would have been, no, your grand, I'll tell you in a minute. But one Christmas anyway, the kids used to say, oh my God, Mick, please, like, think about what you're getting for Christmas. So I was quite stressed that year. So I got all these lovely candles, which were great, and this little wooden nut that I was convinced, it looked like a little nut, that you had to be able to open it somewhere. There has to be a ring in here. He's given me the ring. And I'm trying to figure it, and I'm tapping it and squeezing it. And I said, how do I open it? And he said, open it? What do you mean? And I said, there's something in it, is there? How do I open it? And he said, no. I said, what is it? It's a stress nut. So what do you do with it? He said, you squeeze it. And I thought, oh my God, I am going to kill this man. Absolutely. So the following year, he tried to better that one. And we were at the county fair in Wicklow in August, and they had these little Falabella ponies. And I said, as you do, oh my God, aren't they so cute? Wouldn't one of them be great? We could have it in the garden and I wouldn't have to cut the grass, because we have huge gardens. And Mick said nothing. And that Christmas, he went off the night before with a friend of his, and came back with Nicky. A little Christmas morning, he arrived up to my house with this little pony. He had got Nicky. The horse hated me from day one, Eimear. All it wanted to do was bite me. I used to have to, in order to come down to Mick's house, I had to bring one of the Rottweilers with me, and she would have to herd the pony away because he'd try and bite me. Mick used to let it come into the kitchen. It ran around the front garden. He built stables for it. It was an absolute lunatic of an idea, but Mick thought it was a great idea, and everybody was told about this, Mick and his horse. But we did rehome it to a family that had young children after a while. But yeah, so I suppose Mick passed away nearly 5 years ago. After we had only got married in the August, and that Christmas Mick took sick. He had diabetes. Yeah. And he ended up really, really sick. He had hemochromatosis and he had diabetes, and his whole system was fighting. They couldn't get the medication going. And eventually he had cirrhosis of the liver. And it was, nothing was working. So for the last 4 months that Mick was here in the house, I took care of him. He didn't want to go to hospital and stuff. But we had, we had a very open, I suppose, view of death and passing and how to handle it. And we planned it. When you think of it, Mick did this, as we called it, the Indian giveaway. So he went around the house, and all the things that he thought were precious to him, he gave to people that he wanted to have. He said he wanted to see their face rather than wait till he was gone. So we did all this. We did our bucket list. We had so much fun as he got weaker and sicker. And the mad stuff he wanted to do, Eimear. But we did it. We had fun doing it. One of the days I said, right, what are we doing today? He said, I've made an appointment for us. And I said, okay, and where are we going? We're going to meet the Undertaker. As you do. And off we went and we met the Undertaker. And Mick was like, it was like buying a car. He was in picking out coffins and chatting and saying, he had a very beautiful service, our celebration of his life that we planned together. And it was very much Mick's way. One of the things that Mick loved, and everybody that knew Blue Bloods is a program, and it's a cop program, an American. Tom Selleck is in it, absolutely besotted with it. And to the extent Mick would look at his watch if people were here, and he'd say, it's nearly 8 o'clock, Blue Bloods is on. In other words, go home, get out. I want to watch it. So, so the opening of Mick's funeral was the Blue Bloods theme, and the closing of it was the Blue Bloods theme. But we had, we gave him a lovely send-off. There was no, I suppose, we had funny occasions. I painted his toenails bright pink a couple of nights before he died, just for the buzz of it, to say, well, you're going off now with your little toenails painted. And went shopping about 2 or 3 days before, because it was his birthday, and bought him shorts and a T-shirt in case he was going on holidays. But, he was really, wasn't he? But I know I can laugh about it now, but I suppose, because you have to go through the whole process of the disbelief and all of those things, that went with it. But I think, and the fact that you're losing your best friend, and that you're losing a way of life that is very, very different when you're on your own. And, and like that, you have to find ways of looking after yourself, and I suppose going out and doing the things you do.
So I'm very familiar with grief too. And what was it that helped you? I mean, would you say the fact that you'd been so open about him dying, his diagnosis or his prognosis, having the bucket, doing all the things, him clearing out his house, giving stuff to people, and being able to, I suppose, go to the Undertaker, get the coffin measured and all of that stuff. In addition to that, because I imagine, because that's what helped us. So, what else was it that helped you manage your grief? Because you have, obviously grief always hits, it doesn't go away completely, but you're very, very energetic. The comments here, raising it last to you both, that's to you and Mick. So sorry for, I would totally listen to an Anita podcast. I think we made it a series of Anita. I have so many threads of stories I would listen to for hours, or a podcast. That's from Gabriella. Mm-hmm. So, brave lady, says Leslie. So you are not down here.
No.
You was the time he says you two did an admirable, loving thing together, truly extraordinary. So, what is it in addition to that has helped you in the last 5 years?
I suppose part of the thing is I actually felt very, very lucky to have met my soulmate, that I had a really, really good relationship. I felt so lucky to have done all the things that we did together and all the mad stuff we did, that we really lived life to the fullest. There were times when, you know, we could go days sitting here or whatever, that you wouldn't even have to talk. You were just happy in each other's company. And that was, you know, and that was the biggest thing I missed. I think for me was knowing that I took care of him to the very end. I did what he wanted. You know, to my own detriment, I suppose, you know, family members on Mick's side weren't very happy with, you know, some of the decisions that were made. But it was one of the things, I suppose, was that you kind of have to say, well, what's important to me? And what was important to me was that I did what he wanted and what I wanted. And what got me through it was the dogs, having to look after the animals, having to get on with things, I suppose, and work. So I did kind of throw myself into work a little bit, and that was the denial part. Okay, if I'm not here, I'm not missing them. And, you know, I suppose I was lucky as well that I had really good professionals that I could talk about, because I really am an advocate for speaking about grief and not being afraid of it and not being afraid to express it. And not being afraid, I suppose, to say to people, I need space, leave me alone. You know, and that's okay too. I think crafting was great for me because I am a crafter, and I think being able to have the quiet time with the needle and the and create stuff made a difference. But in between trying to, I suppose, in a way, Eimear, it was very, I felt death lived with me quite a bit, because the year before Mick had passed away, my older sister had passed away from cancer. So I thought, well, you know, and she had handled it similar to Mick, in that way of life, of planning it, being involved in it, embracing it, not being afraid, but it is part of living. But I think it was Mick died in the August, and the November, my eldest daughter, Emma, she ended up being diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer. And inflammatory breast cancer is something that's not common in younger women, but it is very common in older women. And it was a cancer I wasn't familiar with, and all of the workshops that we would have done around women's health in the centres where I worked. So we'll be quite familiar with a lot of the organisations that would have worked with people. So Emma got diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, and she had a 3-year-old son at that stage, Sam, and her husband, Tal. And we had a fabulous big garage outside, huge big double garage. So I wasn't going to be going out, and there was no cars in it. I wasn't going to use it. So I converted into a little 2-bedroom apartment. And Emma and her husband and Sam moved down here with me, living in the little the garage, while she was going through her treatment. So she went and she had chemo. And the chemo worked for a little while, but because it's a very aggressive cancer, she was young, so therefore the cancer is even more aggressive when she's younger. And there is no point in operating, because with inflammatory breast cancer, it's in the skin, it's in the blood, it's in the bones. So she was given, I suppose, about 4 years to live. She lived for 18 months. Very, very brave. Yeah. So 18 months after Mick passed, Emma passed away. Actually, Emma's anniversary, she'll be 3 years dead tomorrow. It's her anniversary tomorrow. So we celebrate. Now, tomorrow we're going to Number One Sons, and he's cooking dinner. And we will celebrate her life and celebrate her memories, because that's what we do as a family. We talk about her, we include her, and she's still with us. But yeah, so Emma passed away, and in a way, she went very, very quickly in the end. Now, it was COVID, so we didn't get to see her before she passed away. Yeah. So it was a little bit, it was tough. And she left a little boy. Sam is now 7, nearly 7. And him and his dad, Tal, they live in Los Angeles. They went to America to live. So, so Death came back to live in the house with me again for a very long time. And I thought, again, I suppose out of respect to Emma and a love for her, that, you know, there's 2 ways of handling this. I either live with it and do the best I can, or I let it consume me. And it's not what I did. That doesn't mean to say that there weren't days where I literally found it really hard to actually face people, all of those things. And I suppose that's where my belief and that whole sense of my spiritual belief started to kick in there, and I started to realize that, this is something that's really important to me. And that got me through Emma's passing. I also made the decision to retire from work a year after she passed, because I thought, I can't do this work anymore. I'm not in the right frame of mind. I was lucky enough I could retire. And one of the things I did actually say at the time was, I'd forgotten how to have fun. That was a very, very big thing. Somebody asked me, what are you going to do now that you're not busy and you're not working? And I said, I want to learn how to not be so responsible, to not be the one that has to think about everything else. And I want to learn how to have fun and do stuff that I hadn't even thought about what I was going to do at that stage. But
just hold on a second. Before we go on, I just want to read out some of these beautiful comments from people. I'm actually quite moved by them.
Okay.
Sorry. This is from Philosophical. Wow. She shows what is possible when we let our grief teach us strength rather than collapsing under its weight. Truly amazing love story. And then this is Eric, who is Castlegar, that's in Canada, not in Ireland. Just thinking what a wonderful narrator of words Anita is. Clear and defined, great to listen to. And then Marcus, wonderful to hear you talking so openly about the hardest of times with such candor. So healing, encouraging, and so much more. Just was from Lisa. It's good to express, and also sometimes you just get enough of constantly dealing with sad stuff and have to live, despite people who think you should be grieving forever. Lisa says cancer sucks. It does in one way, but from my experience, my father had cancer and my husband had cancer. It gave us time. Yeah. And he died. Had they died suddenly, it would have been a different thing. So you know what? It's about being able to find some silver lining. Ricky says, I love that you celebrate her annually. Sean, people sometimes need permission to voice difficult emotions. It takes people putting tears in the collection plate for others to do likewise. And your openness is $100 in a pot. Blessing. So I just wanted to before we moved on, well,
brilliant.
Where does Anita refill her cup of energy? That's because you're coming to that.
That's where we're coming to.
This is Roland. Hi, Roland. You're a very strong woman to tell this to all of us. Dear gods, you've had your trials. This is from Ferdiad. I'm awed by your resilience and that you're able to live so fully. And John King. John will be soon going over to the Hearth for OBOD members. So be ready. John runs the Death Cafe for the Order.
Okay.
So you might want to get in touch with him. Wow, Anita is such a wonderful woman. Those live events would completely destroy many. And Sylvia, this is beautiful. Your words are arrows of wisdom, Anita. Thanks for sharing your family stories, the joys and the sadnesses, and how you worked through the practical ways. Blessed be. Likewise, Anita. Oh, to be an ordinary man. Anyway, dear Anita, you deserve every moment of not being responsible, every second of fun and happiness, and hopefully you'll encounter trillions in a joyful, bright future.
Absolutely.
So, fun bit now.
Absolutely, haven't. Yeah. So it did take me a long time to not be responsible, to not be as disciplined about, oh my God, that little head on me that was there. And I suppose my son and his wife, Jen, and my daughter, Kerry, and her new husband, Anthony, were just fantastic. I mean, we spent time together. We had I love cooking. So my thing was, let's all come to the house and we'll have dinner and we'll cook and we'll chat and we'll cry and we'll talk about it and we'll make plans. So we held each other up, I think, through the difficulties. And because we lost Sam as well as losing Emma, because obviously Sam is in America. So, it was a kind of a double blow. But soon after that, Clay and his wife Jen moved down here and they bought a house about 10 minutes from me with 5 acres. And they started rescuing donkeys and ducks and sheep.
Where did they get that from, I wonder?
I wonder. I did say that. I remember number one son, as we call him, he said to me, promise me one thing when you retire. Please don't go to the dog shelter to volunteer, Mum. He said, because they'll all end up at home with you. So I didn't. And he was right. But he had a few of them over there. As Jen said, he's every bar of you. Like every time I come home, there's a new animal in the paddock or whatever. So I suppose the fact that he moved nearby was a great support to me as well. And likewise, because Jen is a primary school teacher and travels up to Dalkey. And Clay is a lecturer up in Dublin University. He's a sociologist, doctor of sociology, and so he travels up and down. So for about 3 days of the week, I get to go over and keep an eye on the donkeys and his dogs and the ducks and the horses, and I am the apple and carrot lady. So in one sense, the animals were fantastic in terms of my healing, because how can you be sad when you're around such beautiful creatures? And particularly, he has one female donkey, Daphne, and obviously had a rough time somewhere because she took a long time to come around, and particularly to me, for the pets and stuff. So the only time you get near her is if you gave her a treat. But it's lovely now that when I go over, Vinny is one of the donkeys, and he bellows the place down when he sees me coming. So how can you be sad when you get a welcome like that? My own dogs as well, I suppose that, they give me great joy. So in that year, I started to go back to the castle up to Clonegall, because I had been going. Yeah.
So can we just leave that there now? Because I'd like to continue this on the other side. And I'm hoping by now our everybody who's here has received their invite to go to the Hearth, because there's still so much more we're going to talk about. And I'd like that as a new chapter going, because there's lots of connection with Philip and Ross Nichols and me and you and all of that, and between the Fellowship of Vices and Dobod. So what I will say, I will send you through the veil, and don't go. I'll just send you, say goodbye to everybody who's public, and then we'll move over to the Hearth in a minute.
Okay, so I want to say good night to everybody, and just to say that I'm thoroughly enjoying being a guest with Eimear on the Fireside, and I'm hoping people go away tonight with a sense of hope and fun. Yeah, so good night, all. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll see you in a minute. Yes, people are going over the other side. So listen, thank you, Liz. It's a cliffhanger. I hope you can join us. Thank you all. I'm not going to be here next week because I'm going to be at the summer gathering, I'll be on my way to the summer gathering in Glastonbury, where we'll be celebrating our 60th anniversary, and hopefully I'll see some of you there. So, and then see you over in the Hearth, and until we meet again, be well. Hopefully you're getting good weather wherever you are. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or if you're listening to a recording of this chat. Until we meet again, Slán go fóill.